Item number 4, discussion of possible action on the presentation of bare knuckle fighting championship regarding bare knuckle fighting contests or exhibitions or determination of whether such contests or exhibitions qualify as unarmed combat as defined under NRS 467 and thus fall under the jurisdiction of the Nevada State Athletic Commission pursuant to 467.070 for possible action. Gentlemen.
Want me to stand or?
No, you'll have to stand up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time and hearing us out here today.
Please tell us your name.
My name is David Feldman. I'm the founder and president of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. I founded Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship in 2017. We had our first sanctioned event June 2nd, 2018. Since then, we've done 75 subsequent events and a projected 52 events in 2024 in 9 countries around the world. It's really a great honor to be here. I fought here.
Back up. So 52 events you have scheduled this year worldwide?
Worldwide, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Thank you. I fought here. My dad trained 7 world champions, and some of them fought here in the state of Nevada. It's obviously the pinnacle of world championship combat sports, and I would love to be among those with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. We are considered by everybody in combat sports now as the fastest growing combat sport promotion in the world. We're selling really more tickets than any other promotion out there except for the UFC and major world championship boxing events. We're getting more views collectively on 4 different platforms than any other promotion, again, except for the UFC. We are the only combat sport promotion in the United States that travels as CMO aside from the UFC. So us and the UFC are the only promotions in the world that travel a chief medical officer. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over because he has to go into surgery to our chief medical officer just to give a quick 5-minute spiel on our injury updates and our medicals for the commission, Dr. Don Muzzi.
Dr. Don Muzzi, at this time, if you could please use *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, this is Dr. Don Muzzi. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Proceed.
All right. I first want to say thank you guys for allowing me to speak with the Nevada Athletic Commission. As the chief medical officer, I've been chief medical officer for BKFC for about 5 years and immediate past president of the Association of Ringside Physicians. I do travel and serve at the pleasure of each commission or whatever country we're in or whatever state or tribal commission where we are in. So, and then work in conjunction with the physicians in whatever capacity that each commission requires. We have, I'll go over some brief medical data. This data, by the way, has been published in 2 peer-reviewed medical journals, one the Journal of Oral Maxillofacial Surgery, the other the Journal of Sports Medicine. I think Mr. Wheelock did provide those for you all. If not, we can get them for you if you need them. Simply to say, we right now have 1,362 fighters in the database. That's 681, represents 681 bouts. I'll just briefly talk about the results of the fights in that our average fight goes about 2.8 rounds with KOs, TKOs, and decisions at 17%, 18%, and 13% respectively. We can talk a little bit about what seems like a rather high KO rate. In fact, I think I'll address that right now. The KO just simply means the fighter has not risen by the count of 10. We have a fair amount of what I'll call submission knockouts, and the fighters will just go to ground and decide they just don't want to get back up or take a knee and not continue. So by definition, that ends as a knockout. Our talk briefly about our injury rate. Our concussion rate we have so far has been 4.6%. Now, if you do that compared to boxing and mixed martial arts, it's easy to remember it in just a rule of thirds. We're at BKFC is at 4.6%, boxing is at 12%, mixed martial arts concussion rate is about 14.7%. The laceration rate in bare knuckle fighting is higher than you'd see in mixed martial arts or boxing. It's about 35%, and by lacerations, I'm talking about they're primarily facial lacerations, a few hand lacerations. that need to be repaired on and are generally repaired on site with sutures. So I said mixed martial arts is about 13.5% and boxing at 8.7%. Now, just to remark on these numbers that I'm quoting, the BKFC study is the only one of these studies that has been done live with the ringside physician at ringside. So it's prospective information. The information that I'm giving you from mixed martial arts and boxing comes from primary Azazar and Bledsoe studies, and these were all retrospective studies where they looked at commission data and so forth, sometimes videotapes. So our data is very good in that it is live data. I want to remark a little bit about hand injuries because we're frequently asked about that. Our hand fracture rate is literally the same as boxing. It's about 3.1% in boxing and the same in BKFC, 3.1%, and it's 3.8% in mixed martial arts. I should mention that approximately 89.5% of the injuries that occur in bare knuckle fighting are a combination of nasal fractures and lacerations. So relatively, I'll call them superficial or benign injuries. And the nasal fracture rate, again, is lower than one sees in boxing and mixed martial arts. In terms of sending fighters to the hospital, we have sent to date, out of the 1362 fighters, we've had 45 transfers to the hospital. Of those, 16 fighters were sent to rule out intracranial pathology, and there has been, so far, we have discovered no intracranial pathology in any of these fights. There was one fighter that did have a small subdural hematoma in an area of brain known as the tentorium, and it was questionable whether or not it had been previously existing. I can go then, I think I'll go to some comparative data, which might be a little more informative for you all, and then I'll just be silent and if there's any questions. So we talked a little bit about the facial, or say our orbital fracture rate, which is about 1.8%. We've had orbital fractures, in other words, fractures of the facial skeleton, not including the mandible and or nose. It's about 1.8% versus 2.8% in mixed martial arts. We already addressed the laceration rate, so I'll move on to the hand fracture rate we addressed as well, which is similar to what one sees in boxing and in mixed martial arts. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through some slides because I don't want to give you guys incomplete data. We've had, I should disclose, we did have one with our concussion rate, is that I said about 4.6% or more accurately right now, is compared to 12 and 14% in mixed martial arts and boxing respectively. We also do objective concussion testing, which is known as the King-Devick test. It's a test that looks at eye motions, and it's what the NFL or hockey teams use when you see them go into the blue tent. And that's a similar positivity rate. We've had about a 3.4% positive rate with KD testing. That makes sense that our clinical testing, our diagnosis that I made at ringside, is going to be more sensitive than this test. This test has a sensitivity of about 86% and a test of about 90%. So I'm just going to sum this up and I'll open it to questions because I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. So we have, like I said, the most common injury one we'll see is our facial lacerations, superficial injuries, the vast majority of which are fixed on site by the ringside physician designated as a suture physician. Hand fractures are similar to what you see in mixed martial arts and boxing, and the facial fracture rate is actually lower than one sees in mixed martial arts. And we've had really no significant pathology. I should disclose there was one fight where a fighter fell to the mat with his head in a flexed position. He sustained a hematoma or swelling, I say, more simply put, in his cervical spinal cord, and that did result in a fatality 6 weeks down the road. Really unrelated to the sport, more to the fall. The most common sport that occurs in the United States would be swimming. Second would be cheerleading and horseback riding. So, gentlemen, thank you. I've given you, I think, a lot of information, and I'll just leave it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as best I could.
Mr. Feldman, where do these fighters come from? What are the backgrounds? What's the history of people that evolved into this sport?
They're all experienced professional combat sport athletes, boxing, mixed martial arts, kickboxing, Muay Thai, predominantly mixed martial arts right now. We're starting to get some bigger name boxers coming over and signing with us for 2024. Some kickboxers. We had the two best Muay Thai fighters in history fight for us in Thailand in a bare knuckle fight, Bukal and Franchise. So really from all different genres of combat sports, but predominantly MMA. All professional combat sports athletes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, so on our roster we have 2 former UFC champions, and we've had 8 major organization boxing world champions, WBO, IBF, WBA, WBC. So again, as Mr. Feldman said, Sean Wheelock with Bareknuckle Fighting Championship. So as Mr. Feldman said, these are all experienced professional combat sports athletes. We anticipated it would be close or equal when we started boxing and MMA. We've definitely seen more engagement from MMA, but we're seeing now more boxing as more world champions and big names are coming in. Austin Trout, former world champion, is fighting for us on February 2nd for a world title against Luis Palomino, who fought in Bellator. That engages the boxing community. But again, just to reiterate what Mr. Feldman said, all experienced professional combat sports athletes.
What is your process for matching fighters? With vetting process, that's number one with us, is good matches and equal matches. And Executive Director Mullen does a wonderful job, and we turn down some fights, as you know.
Sure.
And what vetting process do you do? What is the history of the process to make sure that you have some fair fights?
We really, we have the most competitive fights in combat sports, second to none. We have the most competitive. That's what really built our company up, is having competitive, exciting fights. We work with the commission to go through approvals. We ask their opinions on some of the fighters, and we've been in combat sports, a lot of us, for 10, 15, 20 years. So we have that experience to make those kind of matches. And for the fans, we have to put on exciting matches. If we put on boring matches, it doesn't work for us. If we put out all first-round knockouts, it doesn't work for us. We have to put on exciting matches. And like I said, we usually work with the respective commission to get their opinion on a lot of the matches, and always respect if they want to turn down a match or not. And, you know, we've really had very, very few matches turned down.
Yeah, I have to believe having people coming from different genres into this thing, matching, and it's challenging. You know, a kickboxer, an MMA, or a pure boxer getting into this, it's 3 different backgrounds.
It can, absolutely. It's really hard to have a boring bare knuckle fight. It's hard to have one, because you got 2 guys. The way that we set everything up, we have a circle ring. So it's a 22-foot circle ring. The 2 fighters start from 2 4-foot lines separated by 3 foot. So they're not starting by opposite sides. They're starting from the middle of the ring. And our rule set 5 2-minute rounds. So everything we did was built for excitement, and that's why we have very, very exciting, evenly matched fights. Because like I said, everything we did in the rule set and in the fighting platforms, everything that we did was built for excitement, and that's what we deliver. And that's, you know, like I said, we kind of built this for today. You know, everybody has a very short attention span now, and we gave them what they needed now.
Right. And then the backgrounds and the recruiting and the vetting for the referees and the judges.
Well, I mean, we work with the athletic commission.
Okay.
A lot of our guys are guys that work in Nevada, work for the UFC, work for the major organizations, but we'll always defer to Jeff. I mean, and we might say, Jeff, can we bring this guy or this guy in? And he'll say yes or no. But most of them are going to be appointed.
So ultimately, it's the commission.
Absolutely.
Good.
Executive Director Jeff Mullen, for the record, they use 2 of our best referees, Dan Mergliata and Mark Smith, that they're using right now. So, and they're 2 of our top MMA referees.
Yeah.
Good. I have to be honest, I've never seen one. Don't really have a background in bare knuckle. So that's why I'm asking these questions. So thanks for patience.
Bare knuckle, you would think, right, your perception, if you didn't watch it before, you would think it's different than really what it is. And our doctor, I think, did a phenomenal job of explaining our injury rate and the excitement behind this. It's growing faster than any other combat sport in the world ever. It's growing very, very fast, and I'll tell you why. It's very relatable to everybody. If I go around to everybody in this room and ask, you guys are in combat sports, but I ask you, do you know what an umapalata is, or do you know what a Darce choke is? You're probably not. But everybody in the world knows what a bare knuckle punch is. They know what it is. They can get behind it. They can associate with it, and that's why our fan base is really, really growing. And we're getting the best fighters in the world now. We're getting former UFC champions, former Bellator champions, former boxing world champions to compete in our ring, and I think that's what's really making this thing grow.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak briefly on the rules? And I want to be very respectful of your time, so I don't want to go very long. So again, my name is Sean Wheelock with Bareknuckle Fighting Championship. The rules that we used were then adopted through an independent committee of the ABC. They were proudly adopted here in Las Vegas at the annual ABC Commission convention in Las Vegas last August. Those are the first ever unified rules of bare knuckle fighting. There's a margin where we go on the conservative side. The unified rules say you can do 2 or 3 minute rounds. We've always done 2. We always do 2 minute rounds. The unified rules say you can do up to 7 round fights. We always do 5 round fights. That's really from Dr. Muzzi. He talks about exposure. It's similar to why 10 round MMA fights or 10 minute round MMA fights morphed out of the sport in the 90s, why 15 round boxing morphed out in the 80s. We are on the side of conservatism, and that's really through Dr. Muzzi just talking about the exposure of it. So in the unified rules, you have some latitude, but we are always 5 2-minute rounds on that. We follow the unified rules. Every show that we've done starting in 2018 has been through an athletic commission. It's always been through an ABC sanction commission. Internationally, we've always traveled an independent sanctioning body for that. We'll work with with Executive Director Mullen, your commission, again, referee assignments, judges assignments. Oh, and Kerry Hatley is another one of your referees who's a regular of ours. So we're using the elite level people from professional boxing and professional MMA when it comes to your judges, when it comes to your referees.
Okay. Chairman. Commissioner Portland, please. Well, you've hit on something that I was curious about, the length of, I think I heard the average fight lasts 2.8?
2.8 rounds.
2.8 rounds. That seems kind of short, and I was also kind of, and it's interesting for you to talk about the evolution of how long these matches go, because, I think Jack Johnson used to fight like 35 rounds or something crazy, back in the day. So why is it just 2.8? Sounds short, or yeah. So can you talk just to explain that?
Absolutely. I could go on for about 5 hours, which no one wants but me. Jeff might find it interesting about the evolution of bare knuckle fighting. We do pay homage to that with what's called the scratch line. The biggest delineation, what I've seen, and I'm 20 plus years in professional combat sports, really is not the bare knuckle. It's the 5 2-minute rounds. The 2-minute rounds starting on the historic scratch lines, 3 feet apart. And the fighters have 5 2-minute rounds. Fights go fast. There are a lot of punches being thrown. There are a lot of hard punches being thrown. There are a lot of punches being thrown a lot to the body. What we typically see is if a fight goes past 3 rounds, it's probably going the distance. But 2.8 has been our number for a long time. It's very much a volume sport. You're not going to see people get concussed, knocked out, completely slept in that. It's the exposure of punches. It's much more like a 100 or a 200 meter sprint than it is like a 5 or a 10 meter race. I do want to say one thing for the record too, if I may. I'm sorry.
No, just adding for the laceration.
Right, and yeah, one thing that we always talk about when clarifying, people have a visceral reaction to bare knuckle. As Dr. Muzzi said, why our hand fracture rate is lower than professional boxing, professional MMA. We're not bare-fisted, we're bare knuckle. The wrap is a full wrap. It is 1 inch below the knuckles. It goes over the thumb and encases the hand down onto the wrist. We travel with professional cut men, all known people in the industry. That's why our hand fracture rate is so low.
Okay.
And I think just the next most important thing after safety is what can we do? Can we sell tickets? Do we create revenue here? We're one of the only promotions, really, one of the top 3 or 4 promotions in the world that are really selling tickets, like selling 7, 8, 9, 10,000 plus tickets. So we feel that we come here to Vegas, well, whatever arena we're in, aside from that football stadium, we will have a lot of luck selling that out. And we get a lot of viewership. We're actually in talks, in heavy talks right now with 2 major networks too, to get broadcast rights fees as well, so that would help create more revenue for the state as well.
Good. Commissioner Raviglia, Commissioner Marnell, any questions?
None from me, Chairman.
I'd like to make a brief comment. This is Jeff Mullen.
No questions for me, Commissioner Hahn.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen?
Yeah, I just want to make a brief comment, Jeff Mullen, for the record. Just the fact that these matches are scheduled for 10 minutes as opposed to 36 or 15 to 25, that's going to make the fights more exciting and safer and less prone to catastrophic injuries just because of the exposure of the time they're in the ring.
Sure.
So I think it makes a good product and a safer product.
And listen, from the beginning of this, we built this from the ground up. Nobody came up and gave us $100 million and said, go build this business. We clawed and crawled our way up every step of the way here. The reason why I'm saying that is I wanted to pitch the Nevada Commission when I first started this because this is like the pinnacle. But I think we're at a time now, we're at a perfect spot in the company's growth to have an event here in Nevada, and we would be greatly honored to be able to have an event here in Nevada now at this time when we're ready for it.
Good. Well, thank you for that. Okay, if there's no other questions, Secretary Mullen, anything else from you, commissioners? All right, we're going to take this under advisement, and we will be back to you. And we really appreciate you coming in. It's exciting. I'm glad to hear about the safety. I'm surprised that the broken hand, I thought it would be much higher. So some of these things are better than I thought. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming in today. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much, and ladies, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.